Good evening, everyone. We are going to reconvene open session and ask all that are willing and able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get a little fan up, make it wave.
Okay, and I will turn the agenda over to Dr. Adams.
Thank you. We will start with our introductory reports. Ms. Carrington, will you give the status of FOIA requests?
Yes, there were 5 FOIA requests and they're all resolved.
Thank you. And our student council report, Caroline Peavy. Hi, how are you? Talk about dedication. There was no school today. That's awesome.
Homecoming was a huge success. That was student council's main focus, obviously, for the first couple months of school. So at the beginning of October, we spent most of our meetings creating decorations and coming up with themes, deciding competitions to get more people involved in the event. One of our biggest successes was we did an advisory door decorating competition. We thought that'd be a great way to get advisories to come together and the school community as a whole to get more students involved in homecoming. So we had each advisory decorate their door based on either the theme of the homecoming dance, which was Under the Sea, or Huskies in general. And we had tons of doors involved in that, which was awesome. So we picked the top 3 and we announced them at the Spirit Assembly. The winning door was Mr. Pearson's door, which they went all out, so that was awesome. The dance itself was amazing. We had 2,198 students attend, which was a great attendance. We were really happy with that turnout. And so now we're kind of focusing on transitioning out of homecoming and into our future events. So we didn't have a meeting last week, but the officers have been working on Tradition of Excellency. So we picked our honorees last year with Ms. Johnson. So we have 3 honorees this year: Macy Peterson, Nia Gilliam Wardlaw, and Howard Willens. So the officers have been working on their speeches that they'll be presenting at the assembly, which is on November 8th. And so we're really excited to transition out of homecoming and into that next phase of student council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in on your day.
I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of our community members to our upcoming town hall dialogue with the board, scheduled for November the 18th. It will be held in the South Cafeteria. There will be a light dinner provided in advance between 6:15 and 7, and the town hall will be from 7 to 9. I'd like to recognize Senior Maxwell Gonzalez as part of the international team of students that won the top award at the annual Global Summit in Davos, Switzerland this summer. The winning project is currently on display at the Nobel Peace Prize Museum in Stockholm, Sweden through the end of January 2020. In fact, Max and his family are there now with the opportunity to view it. I also want to congratulate the following students who scored in the top 2.5% among Hispanic and Latinx PSAT and MSQT test takers in the region, and were named to the 2019 National Hispanic Recognition Award Program Scholars: Armando Carlo, Isabel Corillo, Cullum Jacques, Marco Stacco, and Elijah Sakalaris. Prevention and Wellness Coordinator Ginger Calamusi was named to Governor Pritzker's Gender Equity Task Force. She joins 24 other members and 2 co-chairs who will recommend ways to make public schools safer, more supportive, and more inclusive for our transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming students. Our marching Huskies placed 2nd in their class at the Maple Leaf Classic. Color Guard won 1st place captain, and the marching band earned 3rd overall out of 24 bands. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. And congratulations to everyone. Okay, we are now in our public comments section, and ask that you limit your public comments to matters concerning the jurisdiction of the Board of Education, and limit them to 3 minutes. And we ask that you respect that this is not a dialogue with the board, but if questions are raised, the appropriate administrator or board member will give a reply within 2 weeks. So I'll ask Gail if there's anything.
Yes, Mary Haley.
Good evening, I'm Mary Haley. I live at 1026 Highland in Oak Park, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Oak Park River Forest. And I want to talk about what's coming up at the IASB annual meeting. In 2018, a resolution was presented there that would have allowed, or asked to be allowed, the arming of teachers during the school day. That resolution failed by 24 votes. And that resolution is back on the ballot again this year with the recommendation of the Resolutions Committee, as well as a resolution to fund school safety grants. The League of Women Voters urges the school boards to reject both Resolution 1 and Resolution 3. And I have handed out, or Gail has handed out, the fact sheets from the League. I apologize for the fact that on the second sheet there is a noticeable typo. I was not responsible. Resolution 1 would encourage or allow for the discussion of arming teachers in school. If it passes, the IASB would be responsible for promoting and advocating for legislation to do that. 80% of the teachers who responded to a Gallup poll in 2018 said that they are opposed to it and they would not train to carry a firearm even if their school districts allowed it. A majority of students who were surveyed by the Pew Research Center said that armed teachers would make their schools more violent. I point out that professionally trained law enforcement officers who receive 840 hours of basic training hit their targets 20% of the time. Teachers do not overall want to be carrying guns. Instead, the League advocates for steps to prevent school violence rather than reacting to it. Some of the steps are red flag laws, improved background checks, installing expertly designed school safety improvements, and addressing mental health issues. Resolution 3 is a little bit more of a problem because on the surface it sounds very good. It proposes that there be school safety funds set up that would give grants so that districts could hire resource officers and school security personnel. That sounds good. But the research is very inconclusive that these officers are effective in dealing with school violence. And the big part of the problem is that the training for those officers is inconsistent and in many times inadequate. The best training requires learning how to work with the students and for these people to learn the limits of their authority. They are not there to discipline the students. Many school districts don't require the best training or can't afford the best training. The League suggests that instead of funding the hiring of more personnel, the funding should be provided to create a uniform model of training all resource officers and security personnel. And once that's in place, then we can discuss whether or not we want to have more. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Phelan.
Thank you. My name is John Phelan. I live at 600 Thatcher Avenue in River Forest, and I'm coming up to speak to follow up on the fresh curriculum restructuring that's reports coming to you tonight of the information sessions the administration put on. I saw many of you at many of the sessions, and I compliment the administration, as I think you will, on how they held them. They were very professional in the way they presented their information. They were very even-handed and open-minded in allowing the public to speak. I looked at the report that they put together, and I'm sure that it will be in significantly more detail. I stand up to encourage both the administration and the board to take an objective and thorough look at the evidence that's out there for this type of restructuring. 90% of what they're doing is way overdue. I think standardizing the curriculum between classes is way overdue. The professional development is well worth the time and the effort. But we had asked about, and I had asked about the Evanston results, and I know there was going to be meetings on that. And in the meantime, I was presented with some information on the ACT composite, average ACT composite test scores for black students at Evanston High School. They implemented their program in 2011. In 2011, that composite score was 18.6. In 2012, it dropped to 18. 2013, it dropped to 17.8. 2014, 17.9. 2015, 18.6. 2016, 18.3. And 2017, 18.4. I raised that only because I don't think that's dispositive. I think there's a lot more information to be gathered and looked at. But I do think it's important to gather the information and look at it objectively, because we need something to be done, but not something symbolic. There's been discussion about 69% of students who are in the college prep track could succeed in the honors track. And one of the questions I have is, if that's true, why wouldn't they be moved into the honors track without changing the curriculum and making it less rigorous? Maybe that's what happened at Evanston. I think there has to be a very careful, objective, and transparent evaluation of the different options that are out there. And I hope to see that come to light at the town hall. And I'll send you the report that I got these numbers from, as well as the article that followed up on it, just so that we're all working off the same facts as a board and a community as we decide how to move this school forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Is there anyone that did not sign up for public comment that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, thank you, and we will move into our consent agenda. Okay, so are there any consent items that anyone wants to pull for individual consideration? So I move to approve the following consent items. A, check disbursements and financial resolutions dated October 24th, 2019. B, monthly treasurer's report. C, Moja contract. D, Pecron environmental consultant contract. E, new courses, academic catalog revisions. F, personnel recommendations, including new hires, transfers, stipend positions, resignations, and retirements. G, open and close minutes of September 26th and October 15th, 2019, and a declaration that the closed session audio tapes of March 2018 shall be destroyed. And ask for a second.
Second?
Mr. Isley?
Yes.
Mr. Martyri?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Kowski?
Yes.
Ms. Spivey?
Yes.
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
And Dr. Moore?
Yes. Okay, now we're at discussion.
Our first item is the energy services line reverse auction results. Coming forward to make the presentation is Mr. Mike Carriosho, Carolyn Gust. As you know, we asked the board previously to approve the energy services. We want to tell you the results of that, and this memo is for information only. It is in compliance with Priority 4 of the strategic plan, formerly Goal 6, and Board Policy 4:150 and 4:60.
Good evening. So we conducted the live reverse auction for electric supply on October 9th with Becky from NIDIA and a representative from Transparent Energy, which is a software platform that conducts the auction. As you know, we requested from suppliers pricing for 100% green renewable energy for a 12, 24, or 36-month term. Auction only lasted for 15 minutes. We received 41 bids from 9 suppliers. Lowest bid was from MC Squared. The price fell below the board-approved threshold by approximately 9%. When we compare 100% of the renewable energy pricing with our existing brown energy-only pricing, the district will realize an approximate 24% savings, or $153,000 over 3 years. Even better, we will save money, but we will also be switching to 100% renewable energy. And we'll be reducing the carbon footprint in a very big way. I want to give you a couple. She showed you some statistics when we were here last about what the carbon footprint, how it would affect it. I just want to say a couple of them out loud so that people can hear. By doing this, we're going to affect the environment by removing 617, homes of electricity used for a year, 751 passenger vehicles driven for 1 year, over 3 million pounds of coal burned, over 154,000 bags of trash landfilled, any of those. You get the idea. I would like to thank the board for your progressive decision to approve the switch to green energy. It's going to be a continuing benefit to our environment and hopefully encourage other school districts, municipalities, and institutions to follow our lead and go green. Thank you. Any questions?
If I may add something, the reverse auction was super cool.
It was very cool.
Just watching the bids come in, it was very cool.
Do we have any policy as a board to, a sustainability policy or anything that supports green or not?
We have a resource conservation policy. I can get you the number, I just don't have it off the top of my head. But it's broader than just energy. It talks about all sorts of different things like composting and reducing waste. Yes, we do have something. I can get you the number.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we monitor how well we do at it?
We are now. There's an intervention coming with our new construction, which is really giving us an opportunity to really look at a lot of practices that were not questioned in the past and to do things differently, because we now have a new building going up and new renovation happening. So it gives us an opportunity to take and correct some of the things that over time have drifted from where they should be.
So Craig, would you like to have a report to the board done on sort of what our goals are in that policy thing, so we could?
I think we, my issue is if we're going to support green initiatives, I'd like us not to do it in an ad hoc way.
Exactly right.
I'd like us to have a policy that drives it. I'd like us to report on that policy, and I'd like to have agreement to what we agree to as representing the taxpayers to do that.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it's not so future board agenda.
I was going to say we can please reference that when we get to that section. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the administrator and teacher salary and benefits report for school year 2019. Coming forward to make that presentation is Roxanna Sanders, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. This item is in pursuant of Section 10-20.47 of the Illinois School Code, and we're required to make this report in a public board meeting. It is for information and no action is necessary. This is in compliance with Strategic Plan Priority 4, Transformative Leadership, District Policy 3:50 and 5:35.
So there's a section in the school code that requires school districts to present the compensation report to the board. I think it's a remnant from all days when the board had to approve the report prior to districts submitting it to ASB. Now it's all automated. It's an electronic employee information system that generates a report through the data that we submit. But the language is still in the code, so we are presenting it to the board. If you were able to see the report, I'm happy to answer any questions. Question? Thank you.
The next item is facilities master plan, operational impact. Coming forward to make that presentation is Mike Carriotto, Chief Operations Officer, and Greg Johnson, Associate Superintendent. This is part of our ongoing reporting to the board regarding the facilities master plan. This item is for discussion only. This is compliance with strategic plan priority 4, operations, facilities, and finance, and board policy 2:170 and 4:150.
Hang on for 1 second while I negotiate this. I can't see it here, so I have to look up there, which is very disconcerting. Okay. So good to be here and to give you this update. We actually have a couple of sneak peeks in here, which I'm kind of excited to show you as some of the designs are coming together. And we've even seen some additional designs in addition to what I'm going to show you this evening. And I think you're going to be very pleased. They're excellent. So the first portion of this presentation, I just want to give you a couple of views here. But before we talk about that, let me let you know what we're going to be discussing this evening. I'll try to make it relatively quick with my partner here, Greg, to talk about some of the operational impacts. So we're at a point now where as the timeline has gotten firmed up and we know what's sort of fitting into what time slot, we have an idea of what impact that's going to have on the operation of the school. And the vast majority of the construction is going to be happening during the construction months, with the one exception, which is a fairly significant one, of the south cafeteria coming down and then being rebuilt with the Student Resource Center. So that really has the biggest impact, as you'll see in the timeline. And then we've got a little bit of thought process we'll take you through in terms of the mitigation. We don't have that totally worked out. We've been working pretty hard on what's going to happen really with respect to the cafeteria, that we've been focusing mainly on that and the capacity issues and trying to feed the students. Because at a CCB meeting, I promised the students that we were going to continue to feed them throughout the construction. And we're very happy about that. So that's really been the biggest focus right now. Because that is a long-term effect. That particular amount of work will be 14 to 16 months. So I'll get into the details on that in a second. We'll talk briefly then about some changes that are implied by the design and some staffing implications and some of the offsets of that. The new design will help us in some ways to save some money too, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so next. Okay, so here's the first sneak peek. I want to show you some of these designs. So this is the view of the new cafeteria Student Resource Center looking northeast. So you can see that little the brownish area in the middle. By the way, I'm going to apologize. I'm really terrible at narrating this stuff, so bear with me on it. But it's really a very nice. They really blended. They tried to blend it in with the current design, and they picked up some of the Frank Lloyd Wright Prairie design that you see in other portions of the school, and they tried to make that more prevalent. We're going to give you a full design recap with people that really know what they're talking about next month. So that's where we'll really be able to get in deep on these sorts of things. But this is, as you can see, it's a pretty cool looking building from a distance. So that's looking northeast. Now this is looking from the other direction, looking southeast, or across the fields, obviously. And how you'll see as we get closer how it fits into the mall area very nicely. A little bit of a close-up here. Okay, so you can now start to see the colored brick. When I first saw it, I thought, well, where's that colored brick coming from? That is actually the color of the brick on the lower portion of the building, all the way around the building. So they're picking up that colored brick, and they're basically running it vertically. And it's got a pretty nice effect. And I really like the darker colored wood. That's not wood, that's all composite metal. I'm probably saying it wrong. It's some space age material. I don't know what it is. It's something which is really cool. But it really has a very nice look. And what you'll see is as they develop these themes are now carried through from the outside to the inside of the building. And it's a very, very nice design that's really shaping up very, very nicely. Okay, here's a straight-on shot of the building itself. The two side areas are stairways going up, and the underside of the building, there's actually these louvers that basically, depending upon the time of day, will open or close to let light in, or basically if it's hot outside, to basically block the sun. So there's some really cool designs being built into this, and we're really looking at that area outside maybe being an area that the folks could spill out from the cafeteria to a nice area outside for seating. So that's, as we'll talk about later, that I think has some implications in terms of how we talk about open campus and having students out in that space. But we'll talk briefly about that later. So that is the extent of my sneak peek. So, well, for now, I've got a little tiny sneak peek on the inside coming up at the end. So just a reminder of where we are right now. We settled on, based upon direction from the board, a timeline which would have us breaking ground in June 2020 and having the project portion of this work being completed substantially by August of 2022. Okay, so that next summer, the 2023 summer, would be then the completion of the life safety work and the yearly maintenance work in 2023. Still a significant chunk of work, but we basically prioritize the project one work to the front end of the project. There will be an impact to summer school, and what I'll do is I'll get into the specifics of the impact line by line, item by item. Okay, so but we know right now there's going to be an impact to summer school in 21, 22. 23 is still unclear. We're too far out to really know for sure. We're going to try. It sort of depends on how the schedules play themselves out. So here's the timeline of everything together. What I'm going to do in subsequent slides is take each of these yearly slices, and I'll talk about the impact year by year. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any time on this. Going to our first summer, which is this next summer coming up, summer of 2020, the biggest item on here obviously is the South Cafeteria demolition and construction. So the other things happening this summer, we're going to be building 4 to 5 test classrooms. The test classrooms will give us an opportunity to put teachers in those spaces. We're going to try to have enough of those so that not every department, but the departments that can have teachers in there can start to try those test classrooms out and get a sense for some of the way that the room is laid out and so forth. And the reason it can't be every department is because you really can't build a science test classroom. We actually have a pretty good idea what science is looking for. So the specialized departments, fine and appliers would be another example, they wouldn't be able to participate in that, but they've got some very specific needs. But the idea is to get as many teachers as possible in those classrooms so we can get some feedback in terms of what a good layout might look like, so we can build that into the design when it comes time to renovate the classrooms. Driver's ed is going to be an impact in the summer of 2020. They live right now on the second floor above the South Caf, so their space will be gone. So we need to locate them someplace else. The impact during the summer for them is they have to be relocated, and they've got these simulators they're on their own dedicated network, and there's just not enough time to take the simulators down, move them in another place, put the simulators back up, have drivers ed, and then take them down again and move them to another location. So working with Greg and his team, we made a determination we would still run driver's ed, but we will not use the simulators, which implies additional teachers or behind the wheel time. So that we just, did you want to speak to that at all, Greg? Or?
I think you did a great job.
Okay, good. Maryland Duke thing, similar thing, it lives where the building is coming down, so we have to relocate them. We're looking for an opportunity. Obviously, the quantity of mail has gone down. We're thinking more of a Kinko's concept. We're looking at combining both our printing and duplicating area with our mailroom area and switchboard area. So we're looking at combining spaces. So that's going to be built into the design. So the net effect for this summer would be, as I mentioned, driver's ed. We'll have that more behind the wheel time for our students enrolled in driver's ed. And mailroom duplicating, we're going to relocate them during the summer, and then we're going to put them in their new home in the fall. And then finally, we really feel like even with all the activity going on, we can run a normal summer school. But we haven't really put all of those plans together so we know which rooms, which areas of the building are going to be available for our summer school rooms. This happens every year. We basically go through summer construction. There'll be more this year, but I don't think it's going to be at the extent where it's really going to have a significant impact of summer school. At least this is what we're hoping for. So that's those first two columns. The third and fourth column are really there to represent the fact that that south cafeteria will be down from June of 2020 through January of 2022. So that is a year and a half. Okay? So what we actually up there, we actually have done some work. Our original thought was we were going to have to modify the luncheon schedule to be able to accommodate the number of students we had to feed. And we've actually, we think we may have a solution that we won't have to modify the schedule. So we found some places where we can put some additional seating. So the ink's not dried on that one yet, but the whole process we're going through is identifying these issues and then working our way through them. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just a question in terms of the relocate or the need for more cars and teachers. That's just for the summer
Yes.
only. And so if there's a cost that we can estimate on that, I mean, it'd just be helpful to have just kind of following up on what.
There are a number of items exactly like that, which are these ancillary costs that really are not directly related, or they are related, but they're not part of the construction, but they're being driven by construction. So we're definitely going to put those in a separate account and track them very closely.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the summer of 2021. Again, you see the south cafeteria is still on the list. It will be down. We will begin work on our special education remodeling. That'll be done in 2 phases. We'll also be looking at the main entrance and student commons. And I will tell you, I've seen the design for that, and it is amazing. It is really very, very cool. I'm not going to say anymore. Keep holding on suspense. Jordan knows. I told her about it. It's very cool. We'll also start the classroom renovations. That'll be done in probably over 2 summers. Not probably, be done over 2 summers. And we will do the all-gender toilet rooms at that point. And we'll begin our health, life, safety work. This work is a redoing of all of our fire alarming systems, our enunciation systems, our announcements, all of that sort of thing. So we'll be touching every space in the building. That work is going to take a lot of time. We'll be touching just about every part of the building. And that's really, a lot of this is what's driving the fact that we really are going to have a difficult time in summer school, because we are going to have people all over this place. So the impact, obviously there will be no cafeteria, so that it won't be available for any activities. This year, because we're doing that front entrance area, the Little Theater and the auditorium will not be available, so there will be no summer musical available on site. They may do it elsewhere, but not on site. And the impact for this year is no summer school on site either. Okay, so that's 2021. Moving to 2022, it says modified schedules, but we'll actually, whatever we determine we're going to do to get the kids through and get them fed will be exactly what we do. And you can see there the impact. The second semester of the 21-22 school year, which is January 22, is when that cafeteria will come back online. The cafeteria and the Student Resource Center. So, and that's taking some of the other areas in parts of the building, like the tutoring center, makerspace, and putting those on the second floor of that location, and the library. I didn't leave the library out. So those will be relocated to that center location by that time, and then work will begin to backfill that space with classrooms. So that's sort of how it's going to play out. So now we're through the 2022 school year.
Mike, I kind of went quickly over no summer school on site, 2021, and just want to keep us all aware of making sure that it's clear that we're saying on site and that there is a plan,
Yes.
so people don't stop reading after no summer school.
Thank you, Mike. It's the second time you've turned on my mic. Yeah, absolutely. This doesn't mean we're canceling summer school in any way, shape, or form. In fact, we are looking into options that will allow us to provide the exact same programming for summer school moving forward. So thanks for that.
And if there's a way to convey that, given that these documents are viewed by our community, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, we did move on? So moving into the summer of 2022, we will finish up the part 2 of the special education redesign, finish up the classroom renovations. This is phase 2 of 3 of the health, life, safety, the fire alarm and mass notification. And then we'll basically begin. This is a little bit misleading, but we'll really pick up our capital improvements in a big way. The reason I say it's a little misleading is we actually have to do some capital improvements this next summer because our roofs are shot. And we pretty much have areas which we've got a lot of leakage. We tried to do some special program to fix it, and it failed dramatically, and now we've got to replace them. So that's the sort of thing that has to happen, and we're triaging some of that right now, so it's not, some of this is not totally settled yet. This summer, again, it's a very similar situation with an impact to both the musical and summer school. Again, on site, not saying we're not going to have it. Summer of 2023, we'll finish up our health, life, safety, and our capital improvements. And we're not sure about summer school, we're not sure, at this point we should be okay for the musical, but we're not sure about summer school. Okay? Questions? Okay. So I just wanted to mention this to get your thought process going, or my thought process is this is a wonderful facility. I'm really, really excited about the work that we're doing and what it's going to be for the students and for the faculty and staff. It's going to be awesome. And one of the things we heard very loud and clear from the Imagine work was the students wanting a place to be able to hang out and to be here and to really enjoy the space, which a portion of that is really extended hours. So extended hours is something that we really want to think about as we have this wonderful new space. And I think given the versatility of what we're building, the community is going to want to use it more, which is wonderful. I mean, but it's going to be something we have to think about now, to think about how we're going to enable that in a way that makes a lot of sense for us and for the community and for the students and the faculty and staff. So the way we handle how students move through the building right now is going to have to shift and change because the new space is not designed the way the old space is designed. So we have to think about how we're going to use passes, how kids can flow, what are the spaces that kids can move through without any pass, and during which time. So I think we have to rethink that. We have to rethink supervision. We're going to have to rethink where food can be in the building. We have an issue with our tests right now. I'm talking now about. I'm just going to hear. We have an issue right now, and we just have to be very careful about cleaning up and making sure that where food is, we have enough folks coming through to pick up after them. So it's a big deal, and we're working at this on some of the surfaces. The one thing I wanted to mention that really hit me hard, and it wasn't something I had thought of, is if you look at our existing cafeteria, it is extremely functional, but it is also extremely institutional. And it has a lot of capacity for students. And what we're building is going to be much more welcoming. It's going to have a lot more character, a lot more texture to it. It's going to really be a nice space, but you're going to lose some seating there. So we had to think about where can we recover that seating in other parts of the building. And I think that's a good thing, but what that implies is you can't just say food is going to be in this space because it now starts to spill out into other spaces. So I'm not sounding the alarm. I want us to start thinking about it as an institution. What do we have to do to make sure that when this comes online, we are prepared for what we're going to be dealing with. So we've got 12 new classrooms, a new student resource center. We're going to have opportunities for us to use these facilities in extended hours. So what can we use it for? Very positive potential things: study halls, tutoring. That's going to have an impact to our custodial staff and our campus safety staff. So all good things, something we want to start thinking about because it's not just the building, it's how do we staff it so that the building can be utilized effectively. Okay, questions, comments? Some of the things we're hoping to really look for as significant enhancements is the ability to compartmentalize the building, to say this is the area of the building we really want to keep the public in. This is where, because right now you've got resources located throughout the building, and you really can't close down a portion of the building. This compartmentalization will allow us to do some things in terms of energy utilization, lighting, heating, air conditioning. It'll also help us with our supervision too, so there's an offset there to the enhanced power supervision. So we're looking forward to that. That's obviously something we're considering as we're putting this design together. And then there's also the potential revenue for new spaces. It was funny, well, I'm not going to, I don't want to give away too much, but when I showed someone one of the designs, they said, wow, you can come and have your wedding here. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that was the comment that was made. I'm not, okay, I went too far. All right, now I'm moving right along here to the next sneak peek. So these are very, very, very short videos, and they walk you through the spaces. So hopefully this will work. These were not public earlier, but I made them public right before the meeting. So now you're walking into the cafeteria. You can see the different seating. You've got some of the high capacity seating, but you also have some other smaller group seating in different areas. You see the glass windows looking out onto the fields, onto the mall and the fields. So we're now circling our way around. This area that you're going to come on now to the left as we're looking at, that's the servery. That's where the folks will get their food. And then we're going to come right back out into the hallway here. So the idea was that you would increase visibility. You would basically have some interest in terms of the space. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm going to cancel it quickly. Not quick enough, unfortunately. Let me close this out. Did I close the whole thing out? Of course I did. Yes, I did. That was terrible. All right. There's actually... So I have to navigate back to this.
Mike, while we're... that's cool.
Sure.
Is there, what's the estimated number of seats that we're losing in that process? Is there a number yet that we've...
That we're losing?
Yeah.
In that space itself, it's a couple hundred. But we have some additional space being added in other places. And we just actually got a document today that did the math, and we think we're okay. So, yeah. Before today, we weren't. It was okay. Where am I here?
To the other one.
When you see this, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm not suggesting that. I know I've said several things here that have raised some eyebrows, but I'm leaving anyway, so it doesn't much matter.
So you show us the wedding house?
I'm going with business. All right, I think I'm back to this point, so let me go back to the presentation. And my apologies, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so that was, we did the walkthrough of the cafeteria itself. Now we're going to go to the second and third floors, to the Student Resource Center and the library. Okay, so now you're coming in from the hallway. The makerspace, the idea here is on the left-hand side is a reception area, help desk, and this is the learning stair. This concept is a linking element between the second and third floors, the library and the third floor. There's a classroom we just zipped past there. This is the makerspace here that we're in right now. There was another classroom we just zipped by on the other side, and you can see there's 3 or 4 different classroom learning spaces on this floor. Okay, another classroom off to the left-hand side. So now this is right above that south cafeteria. So we're coming up on the learning space from the other side. This is an area we had considered for having a cafe. But from a budget point of view, we're not sure we can do it in the space, but we're leaving the space stubbed out for that. Now looking at the learning stair. The idea here, if I can pause this for a second, the idea here is that the way the learning space has capacity for 2 full classes, and the idea is there will probably be the capability to do some projection here in front of this space. So this could be, another the whole idea is multi-purpose spaces. So this could be another space, gathering space, and you could basically have a couple of classes with a projection screen pulled down. It's a pretty cool design. So now we're going to go up to the 3rd floor, and this is the library. So you can start to see the stacks for the library books as we come around. The lower stacks in the foreground for visibility, and the higher stacks up against the walls. This would be your circulation desk as we come in. There's a classroom right off to the right as we roll by here. This is an awesome area out here for reading or studying, with the visibility out to the mall and the fields. Now we're coming around the back side. You can see more stacks here. And then this is the other side of the learning stair as we come around. Okay, that's all I had. That's the extent of the sneak peek. Yes?
I have 2 questions. First of all, isn't the library going to be really loud?
I'm sorry?
Isn't the library going to be really loud, seeing as it's got all that open space and collaboration space? I mean, do we have any sort of quiet spaces for students?
Yes, and I don't think the details of that have all been worked out, but we had those conversations. Do you want to comment on that?
As you can see from the 2nd and 3rd floor combined, there are little classroom spaces that are used for quiet or study spaces. But we need to keep in our mind, which I constantly have to remind myself of, that the concept of a media center or a library is a little bit different right now than what we experienced when we were going through high school or elementary school, right? And so even right now, our current library space is really a collaboration space for our students. We have a tutoring center, right, which is a little bit different. But it really does function as kind of a quiet, collaborative space. And so we imagine that same type of feel will exist in this space as well.
And the way the library takes care of that right now, it's a very similar situation. They actually have different zones. And in this first zone is more of the collaboration space. Then there's small group space, and then there's the quiet space. So they actually, there's a lot of ways you can do that. And I know the way we've talked about the design. It's not pictured here, and that those conversations have happened. It's just not shown in any of these designs. Yes.
And then I just wanted to follow up on our conversation that we had the last time that you all were here about in terms of ADA accessibility. I'm assuming all of these spaces are accessible, but where are we with the enlarging doorways and making sure the hallways are compliant? I know we were going to have an accessibility study done, and I just was wondering where we are with that process.
So there's 2 parts to that process. There's some work that's going to be done this summer, and that's in the planning stages right now. It'll be done before this summer. And then in terms of the accessibility study, we just got a note back from them today. The actual on-site work has been completed. We're hoping to have a report in our hands by middle of November, and probably be ready to talk about it in the December timeframe. We were planning, thank you, you helped me right into my next slide. We actually will do a design presentation in detail in November. We probably won't have a lot to say about accessibility because we'll have just gotten the report back. But I would say in the December timeframe, when we talk about the timeline update, and really more firming up the timeline than an update. And then the budget, we can talk about accessibility at that time. We'll have a better sense of where that fits into the picture.
And who was doing our accessibility study? Did we contracted out, I'm assuming?
Yes, we did, and I can't remember the name of the company. He was, Great Lakes is a company that does a lot of that work, and he was one of the folks. They can't recommend anybody, but he was on a list of folks that they have used before to do studies.
I'm just curious, what is the title of that area? I mean, are they architects? Are they? What's the expertise? I
don't know.
Perhaps we could find out and send you to the board.
Yeah. Well, and we've got his resume, we've got his, all the work he's done, so we can absolutely share all that with you.
Thank you.
So, coming up next month, we'll do a more in-depth design presentation with folks here that can really answer questions about wind materials and so on and so forth. And then in December, we'll give you the next iteration on the firming up of the timelines and also any budget impact that we've been trying to work our way through it. And as things come up, we figure out what items we can mitigate, how we can mitigate and change them. So we'll be able to report on that in December.
I do have one comment. I guess one thing I'd like to see, I understand where we are with the ADA piece, but something we haven't really spoken about, and we spoke about during the process of selecting the architect and looking at this, was what elements of the design make it inherently safer, and what types of things we're doing from a safety standpoint. That would be good to incorporate some of that in the conversations and the peaks of what we're looking at.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually had that conversation several weeks ago about it really shows up in the conversation of the front entrance and the student resource center. Yeah. So that's when we talked through that.
Mike, I just had, when you said that the accessibility study would not be available for the November presentation, will the architects be here when we have that discussion in December?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering, just in terms of efficiency, if this design presentation, having it in November when the information that Craig and Sarah referenced won't be available until later, are we kind of duplicating efforts?
So the excessive, let me set expectations, okay? So we know what we have to do to make those classrooms that we're remodeling accessible. I'm choosing my words wisely because the different terms have different meanings, but in order to enable our students to really access those classrooms. So, excuse me, I'm going to try to just say it plainly, okay? So we know what we have to do. The accessibility study is just a total another level of detail, and it's much more comprehensive. So the one we know what we need to do to make those rooms accessible, but the accessibility study is way more detailed and it's comprehensive. So we've kind of broken that into two pieces. We knew we had this issue to address when it came up, so we went right after that, not waiting for the accessibility study.
So I guess my question is, the accessibility study will inform the design?
Oh, absolutely.
So the design presentation, are we being premature having it in November?
I don't think so, because I'd like you to see some of the conceptual components. The accessibility pieces that are in terms of the design are just making sure that as we get into an area, we do it properly. For example, when an architect builds something, they have to build it to the ADA standards. There's no choice. They will lose their license if they don't do that. What this accessibility study points out to us, even though we don't have to make these changes, if we're in that area, what sorts of things do we need to do in addition to what they were planning to do? So that's the part where we'll inform it. It's not going to show up in a big way in terms of the design concepts we're showing you are way up here from their big component pieces. They're not at the nitty-gritty level. The handle of the door's got to be here, or there's got to be so much clearance as the door opens up. Those are really the nuts and bolts that the study that we're commissioning is going to tell us. So it's going to be important for the detailed design, but it's not important for the portion we're showing you now. Does that make sense?
We'll say yes.
Well, I have a question. I'm not as clear.
Sure.
So, but maybe if I just try to paraphrase it for myself. So what you're saying is the pieces that they're planning, right? All of this design work that you're showing us is all accessible because part of the design process is that would make these new pieces that are being built accessible. When you do the accessibility study, that's going to look at overall the entire building, and as building out of future pieces happen, that would be addressed. So what you're showing us is will already be designed based on accessibility features.
If I might, What you will see in the November presentation is similar to what you saw today, but in a little bit more detail. It's not the scope and down to the specifics of this much square footage in this room, this doors this width. What he's also saying is any new construction, any renovation that is done by law has to be done to be accessible, ADA accessible. So whatever is going to be done will be ADA accessible. The piece I think that the board has a concern about is the pieces that may not be touched, and how are we addressing that accessibility in terms of other things. And so that's what the accessibility study will tell us. You may not, because it's doing the building as a whole, so you may not be doing work on here, but this is something you, as a part of the project, but something as a district you really need to look at in terms of making it accessible.
Thank you.
And so, Mike, thank you for this. It's very exciting to see these, I know they're still high level, but those tours you gave. And I think that, I mean, that this is the most extensive that we've seen something in this format to this point. And those videos are now live online, apparently. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important for us to set expectations in that regard, just from a communication standpoint, to think about letting people know, you know, what this is and what it isn't in terms of the finished product. That this is, you know, so but I think it's fantastic. It resembles some of the things that we were able to see on those tours of those schools that did recent renovations. So it's incredibly exciting, and you're a very good tour guide. So
thank you.
Get a little side gig.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to start the next time?